Today we are on the road to Buena Vista, where we've been before. I skipped most of the preliminaries. We're actually most of the way there right now. The Buena Vista ferry. They might say Buena Vista here. I'm going to pronounce it in Spanish, Buena Vista. Last time I was here in January, the water was too high and I couldn't ride the ferry. Today I can. I'm not sure if the schedule, I know it starts and stops at a certain hour, but I don't know if it's on demand or if I'm going to have to wait till a certain time. So I'm just waiting here. It looks like they're going to pick a car up now, and then I'll be traveling across. So I'm crossing on the ferry. This is pretty exciting for me, even though this is not the most epic water journey in the history of the world. Last time I was on a boat or on a ship was on a ferry between La Gran Isla de Chiloé and Los Lagos region in Chile. And I was thinking at the time, wow, it's been a while since I've been on a boat. And sadly, in my entire life, and I'm not an inexperienced person in general, I like to travel. I've been on ferries 3 times in Chile, both ways. I've been on ferries several times in the Seattle area, and I'm trying to think, maybe only twice in Seattle, and then once in Portland, Maine, and once a little thing on a pleasure craft. And other than that, being on like an inflatable raft, I've never been on a boat, and that's kind of sad to me because I like to travel, and there's this entire type of travel that's been important to people for thousands and 10,000s of years that I've really never done. I mean, this is my 10th boat trip of my life across the Willamette River in Buena Vista. And apparently the ferry is on demand, so I just show up on one of the landings, costs $1, and then I cross the river, and I will be crossing to Marion County. First time I've been to Marion County for a while. And then we'll be proceeding from there. Okay, the dramatic moment of contact, and then I'm going to put the phone down. Okay, that was easy enough. Okay, here we go. This is Marion County, a mile or two northeast of the ferry. Not a lot of specific landmarks here, but I'm following this road because I believe that this will lead me to the Ankeny Wildlife Refuge. I have reached the Ankeny National Wildlife Refuge. And right here you can see this field is flooded, and you can hear the water coming from over there. And I assume this is pumped out to keep plants growing, so there will be nesting places when the fall breeding season begins, or the fall nesting season, fall migration season. And so this is artificial, but on the other hand, before this area was settled by Europeans, all of this, probably within 4 or 5 miles on the Willamette on either side, would have been naturally a floodplain. And so it's only because the river has been channelized that then when we have to artificially flood the fields. I think I overshot Ankeny Wildlife Refuge. This road here leads to Salem, and in terms of linear miles, I'm like 3 or 4 miles, I think, from where the Salem buses start. But it's a steep and windy road. Maybe another day I'll take my bicycle to Salem and take the train home to Albany. There's a vineyard there, at least it certainly looks like a vineyard. Over there, actually, wild rice, which I don't usually think of rice as something we grow in the Willamette Valley, but apparently it is. And so I'm going to head back this way. The thing about the wildlife refuge is it is a wildlife refuge, not a theme park. So even though there's a lot of public lands in the sense of being for the public, it's not publicly accessible. In all places. I think there is one place where there's a nice little boardwalk and stuff, but I was probably bicycling by the wildlife refuge, but it was all, just fields that were separated from public access. Well, let's see what we can find. For example, this is part of the National Wildlife Refuge. It says it on the sign right there. Notice that aesthetically it's a little bit lacking. Most people wouldn't consider this a beautiful nature experience. This looks like a parched, dirty field, probably planted with grasses and stuff that will start growing when the autumn rains come. The point here, birds have different standards than people do. So this is the public area, public access area, and these are some of the birds I've come to see. Can't really tell on my little Android camera, but there's apparently pelicans, egrets, different types of duck and geese, all chilling out right there. Some more of the wildlife refuge, but nothing notably more. So there was more to see. We have another lake or wetland here. It's about a little bit after 3. The ferry closes at 5:30, which gives me a lot of time to get back there. But out of an abundance of caution, probably just be taking one last look and then going home. So if you look in the distance, there's that bald hill with some trees, and maybe you can see some radio antennas on top. That was the age that was the place I lived, age 7 to 9, the age I was on my album cover. No, when I was about 8 to 12 or 13, and it's pretty close in distance, but it's a long, long way in memories. That's also near Jefferson. My original plan for this trip was that I was going to cycle back through Jefferson and Albany, which isn't too many more miles, but is a little bit more work because it's driving along streets and stuff with cars and traffic and turn signals. So I'm just coming, go back through the fields. Windy, mixed blessing for cyclists. This intersection, I'm not sure, I'll have to check. I thought I knew, I thought I looked at the maps before I came. This is either Sydney, Talbot, or it could just be an intersection. So in the first wave of European settlement of this area, 1850s to 1870s, a lot of areas like this became communities. Because at the time there was not good roads and no automobiles, so every 4 or 5 miles you had to have a church, a store, a school, post office, at least. And then, you know, until the 1940s that was probably the case, and a lot of the areas that were settled in the late 19th century remained communities of some sort. And now there's a lot of places that you can see there was something here at one point. I passed by something that looked like a storefront. I don't want to show it because I don't want to show somebody's house, but I passed by a place that looked like a store. You can tell that there was something here, but as I said in the Peoria video, when we went to Peoria, there's no services here. There's nothing that would keep a community together. And so, you know, I kind of just think for 70 years, there was probably entire stories about the people who lived here, what they had in common, meeting down at the post office. Now that's lost. But on the other hand, almost all of the thousands of years of settlement by indigenous people is also lost. So sometimes I go through these places and it just looks like a nice little intersection. But I think about all the stories that have been lost. Now, unfortunately, My Android can't capture smells, and if it could, I can't upload them. From what I can tell, this is a pile of mint mulch. Probably not leaves, probably just stems because it's not that clear, but a pile of mint mulch is a real good thing to come across. Back on the ferry. In case anybody was interested in the jurisdictional aspects, this is a Marion County ferry. Crosses from Marion to Polk, but it's a Marion County ferry. It's kind of silly, but it's still pretty exciting for me. Like I said, even this short trip like this, it's something I've only done maybe a dozen times. Only takes about a minute or so. Last time I think I pretty much showed it in real time. Out in the outside world, Lil Nas X just came out with Monteiro. I haven't heard it yet. Looks interesting. It's kind of interesting for me. I remember I was in Curacaví in Chile, just outside of Santiago. I was walking down a road and I suddenly realized why that song wasn't a novelty song. Old Town Road. It'll be interesting whether he'll be remembered for that song or what he's doing now, which is a lot more edgy. But Old Town Road wasn't a novelty song. Old Town Road was about trying to go back to somewhere you can't go back to. Thinking, this town, Buena Vista, probably went here when I was 10 years old, 12 years old, something, with my mom driving around Sunday drives. And it's so close. Things haven't changed that much here. But I can't go back because of the things that I've seen, Last week, I commented how far you can go. It's not always the same as how far you can return. And today I went about 5 miles further than I did last week. And I felt pretty good. And now I'm in the last 10, 12 miles of my trip. Finished about 80% of it at least. Maybe, okay, 75, 80%. And I'm pretty cashed right now. Part of that is this wind. Pretty hard to bicycle in this wind, even though it's cooled things off. And it's only 5 p.m. and so I still have a lot of hours of daylight to get home. But yeah, this is why I'm cautious sometimes, because sometimes you just kind of hit a wall bicycling. Back at Camp Adair, only a few miles from my last message. The wind got really brutal. I forgot how bad wind could be, especially I was over open ground. Now that I'm in an area where there's some tree cover, the wind here is less than it was and it's tolerable. But still, like I said, I really hit a wall. Oh look, we're back in Adair Village. Even though I'm still pretty tired, really tired, this is kind of my point where I'm back in familiar territory. So it kind of takes the edge off. So just 6, I think, miles back home. So I decided to walk the last half mile. I sometimes do this, kind of get my muscles in a different position. Sun set probably 15 minutes ago. It's the last week of summer too, so it's the end of the day and the end of the season. And there's a mixture of melancholy and accomplishment with that.